الله عليه وسلم على آله وأصحابه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. We give all praises to Allah Azza wa Jalla who has gathered us under His umbrella and canopy of mercy. May Allah continue to count us among those that will earn His mercy in this world, in the grave and on the day of judgment. Ameen. May Allah use this Ramadan to cleanse us of our sins, make us earn the certificate of paradise as a result of trying our best to follow in the tenet of what He has revealed. And may Allah continue to bless our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, his household members, and all those that stood by him, our teachers, our parents, and all those that were instrumental in our life that made Islam easy for us to practice today. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. I greet all our members at Naeem Masjid Mubarak by the best of greetings. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is always an honor to come and rehearse what has been taught to me by my teacher, Imam Nuruddin, and the many scholars that you have in your community. May Allah preserve them for good, and the same for all of us. Amen. Today, I have the topic of the importance of steadfastness in the life of a believer. We need to understand what steadfastness is in relative to those that were with the Prophet ﷺ while he was alive. Before we get to the definition, I want us to begin by thinking and pondering over an hadith that Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu got from the Prophet ﷺ. And the hadith goes as thus. It says, An Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu anna Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam قال يا غلام إني أعلمك كلمات احفظ الله يحفظك احفظ الله تجده تجاه إذا سألت فاسأل الله وإذا استعنت فاستعن بالله واعلم أن أمة لو اجتمعت على أن ينفعوك بشيء لم ينفعوك إلا بشيء قد كتب الله لك ولا اجتمعوا على أن يضرك بشيء لم يضرك إلا بشيء قد كتب الله عليك رفعت الأقلام وجفت الصحف. This narration by Abdullah ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him. When the Prophet ﷺ called him, he says, Ya Ghulam, O young man, can I advise you? Inni u'allimuka kalimatin. I want to teach you two words. Ihfadullah, be conscious of Allah. Be aware of Allah and His rights. Yahfaduk, Allah would guide and protect you. And He says, if Allah guides you, that if you were to ask for anything in terms إِذَا سَأَلْتَ فَأَسْأَلِ اللَّهِ, if you were to pray for anything, pray to Allah for whatever you want. And when you want to ask for assistance from anyone, ask from Allah. Go and know, verily, that if the world were together, the nations were together to benefit you on anything, they would not be able to benefit you on whatever they have gathered to benefit you with, except what Allah has prescribed for you. And if the people were together to harm you, they would not be able to harm you except what Allah has prescribed for you. Then He said, Rufiyat al-Aklam wa Jaffat al-Suf. The pen of your destiny has been written, has been lifted, and the pages are dry. Steadfastness, by definition, is to be resolute, to be fully convinced and content on your stance with the proper evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah. Also, it can be understood to be dutiful in your obligations without wavering, by being loyal to the covenant you took with Allah. And the covenant we all took is إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Indeed, You are the one that we would worship, and from you would we search and seek all forms of refuge and assistance. The Arabic word for steadfastness is al-istiqamah. In Surah Hud, Quran chapter 11, verses 112, Allah says, فَاسْتَقِمْ كَمَا أُمِرْتَ وَمَنْ تَابَ مَعَكَ وَلَا تَطْغَوْا إِنَّهُ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ بَصِيرٌ. This is a direct injunction and a command to the Prophet ﷺ, and by extension, it applies to those that follow him, the believers. Allah says, فَاسْتَقِمْ, be upright, O you Muhammad ﷺ. Keep the upright course, keep the right course. كَمَا أُمِرْتَ, as you've been commanded. وَمَا تَابَ مَعَكَ, and those that follow suit with you, they should also be upright. وَلَا تَطْغَوْا, don't be excessive. Don't cross the lines that are defined by Allah. Do not exceed the bounds of Allah. Together, not just the Prophet, but those that are Muslims as well, we should not exceed the bounds of Allah. إِنَّهُ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ بَصِيرٌ. For everything that we do is very apparent before the sight of Allah. The command of Allah to stand firm and straight was directed to the Prophet ﷺ and also the believing servants of Allah to always be upright. For uprightness is the greatest aid for gaining victory over any obstacle that we encounter in life. And it is also a very great tool in confronting opposition, because Islam gives us the wherewithal and the tools of dealing with people. That ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal maw'izati al hasana, that call into the ways of the religion with wisdom and a beautiful speech. Wajadiluhum billati hiya ahsan, and if it were to engage in a back and forth situation whereby everybody has to bring their proof and evidence, do it in a very honorable and noble way. For uprightness is the greatest aid of gaining victory. And also, you would also notice that Allah has forbidden transgression. And transgression is when He says, وَلَا تَطْغَوْا, don't exceed the bounds, which is to exceed the bounds of what He has allowed. What has allowed? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Allah says, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. That we have enjoined upon you, commanded you to worship Allah alone. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, and be excellent in conduct to your parents. Those are some of the bounds which Allah has given. And if you go through the ayah, you would see how Allah goes from one point to another. But we're talking about istiqamah. So verily transgression causes destruction to the one who engages in it. Even if the transgression were to be perpetrated against a non-believer, we have to understand as Muslimin that all of us are all subjects of Allah, and we will be answerable to Him and will be accountable for our actions. Istiqamah means to stand straight without the least tilt to the left or to the right. So it is to be straightforward. The English expression of straightforwardness, directness, rectitude captures the meaning of istiqamah, in my little understanding. It is not an easy thing to do, to be upright, and to stay upright, and to be known for uprightness. But we have been commanded to stand firm under the conditions in everything that we do. And this applies to all matters of belief. A Muslim cannot do anything without evidence in the Quran and in the Sunnah. And acts of worship. A Muslim cannot please Allah except with what Allah has stipulated as guidelines of the things that will please Him. And we know that for a Muslim, If he believes in Allah, he doesn't associate partners with him. If he prays his 5 daily prayers, and he gives zakat if he has the money, and he fasts in the month of Ramadan, and is able to go to Hajj if Allah has given him wherewithal. The Prophet ﷺ said, even if you do all this at the basic level and you do not transgress, such a person will be meritorious of paradise. May Allah count us among those that will be given the certificate of paradise. Amen. So acts of worship is also an embodiment of istiqamah and the personal and collective transactions that we have amongst ourselves. We know that many of the bridges we burn in life is a result of people not being straightforward, not being upright in their business dealings, in their personal dealings. We've had friends before, they are no longer friends today because they were not upright. Or we were not upright. At times, it is not the other people that are guilty. It may be us that are also guilty. As Muslims, we have to introspectively evaluate situations and understand them. Uprightness would beautify our morals, and it will also enhance our social dealings, and it will promote economic pursuit, which is inclusive of all channels of income and expenditure. So what uprightness is telling us, and Istiqamah is telling us, it is the full package that reevaluates our life to make us understand what is important, what is not important, how do we engage, and how do we get benefit from things that we do. Because in every interaction we have a chance to either earn reward or earn a sin. In the event of the slightest tilt that causes a decrease or an increase in the limit set by Allah, Istiqamah becomes the first casualty. So Istiqamah suffers a whole lot in the hands of man when we are not upright, when we are not straightforward, when we are not diligent in our obligations. When people do not stand firm in belief, they experiment with self-invented practices in religion, such as bid'ats. You see today, so many arguments go back and forth. In Ramadan, Ayama Madudat, the days are numbered. The Prophet ﷺ told us, based on the revelation of Allah, فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيدًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَإِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. If someone is on a journey or sick, he can make the fast up on another day. But you see the arguments that people come and the submissions that people give would always vary. But the best thing to be a good Muslim is to be balanced. Istiqamah calls us to understand that my stance may not be the same as my brother's stance, but it is incumbent upon us to give the evidence without being biased and to showcase the other opinions that may exist. And if we lean towards one, it's because of the understanding we have. But we also have to bear in mind that perhaps we may be wrong, they may be right. Perhaps they may be wrong, we may be right. So that probability is there for anyone that is upright. So you cannot be rigid as someone that is standing fastaqim kama umirt. So when people stand firm in belief, and when people do not stand firm in belief, then they experiment with self-invented practices of religion, which is bid'at. And they may even end up into the extremities of kufr, disbelief. And they may be surrounded or drowning in shirk, which is associating partners with Allah, either knowingly or unknowingly. May Allah save us from such. When we understand the importance of standing firm, it becomes necessary for us to engage in acts of worship for the pleasure of Allah alone and according to the tenets of what the Prophet ﷺ has taught us. But we have a responsibility. Like many of our teachers tell us, We are in an era of trust but verify. We have to investigate. We have to ask questions, not for us or not to fatwa shop in such a way that we want people to lean in the way that we're going. We have to have an open mind to ask questions so we can follow the best of the teachings. So when we know what pleases Allah and what the Prophet ﷺ has taught, and we investigate fully to ensure the nature of the actions with evidence supporting it in the Quran and the Sunnah, then it makes it easy for us to follow what we're following. This topic of istiqamah also provides the Muslims with the moderate and sound way of conducting ourselves in our lives. It provides us a moderate and straight course of action in matters of friendship. As a Muslim, when we are friends with people, we have to understand the boundaries. We have to know the rights of friendship. We have to know the rights of engagement. We have to know the limits. We have to be able to draw the limits and know our place before we put in our place. Istiqamah makes us understand how we deal with people and for the sake of how we deal with people. Why do I say this? Allah says in a verse in the Quran, Al-akhillahu ba'dahum libadin aduhu illa al-muttaqun. You see, friendship would end up becoming enemies if it is not done on the principles of the fear of Allah. Al-akhillah, those that you call friends in this world, ba'dahum libadin aduhun, they are not friends because they want to get benefits only from each other. Sometimes they are watching each other to bring each other down. Illa al-muttaqun, it is only the believers that are doing it for the sake of Allah, that are doing friendship to promote one another and help each other get up, not to pull each other down. Also, it helps us with moderation when it comes to enmity. We cannot be enemies with people. Our heart, we need salama to sadr. We need a peaceful heart. A heart that is at peace with many and within ourselves. Because he who does not have peace from within cannot give it to others. Like the Arabic saying, Fakidu Shehi la yuti. He who does not have something cannot give others. And we need to evaluate why we are friends with people and why we are not on the same page with people. And it also helps us and guides us on when to be soft and when to be strict. Our softness, our calmness is based on the recommendation of Allah and the Prophet. Remember, in ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in fatabayyanu an tusibu qawman bija'alatin fatusbihu ala ma fa'altum nadimin. If someone comes to you with the news, a corrupt person, fatabayyanu, investigate, an tusibu qawman bija'alatin, what you have said could be out of ignorance and you may be hurting people, or even you would end yourself hurting yourself by being in shame with what you said or how you reacted. So it gives us a balance on softness and strictness. And it also gives us a balance on when to be angry, for what reason to be angry, for how long. A Muslim cannot harbor anger for more than 3 days. You are slightly leaving the realms of Islam because you don't want your heart to be what? Hard. I remember, I think it was Surah to Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'm trying to remember. Let me look at my notes. Yeah, I was looking at my notes a few weeks ago at one of the tafsir that we did. I think it's Surah Al-Ahqaf. And one of the things that I found very interesting in that tafsir was when Allah was talking about the hearts in that surah. Some of the earlier scholars, they said that the heart of a human being has a self-lock. When Allah says, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبٍ أَكْفَالُهَا. And we're free to go and look at the tafsir of that ayah. He says, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Don't you reflect on the words of Allah? The recommendation that Allah is giving you. أَوْ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبٍ akfaluha, or are your hearts, are they locked up in chains? Are they padlocked from getting what will benefit them? And the ulama said that the heart has a self-activating lock. And what happens is that the more you listen to the words of Allah and you're willing to follow it, the more the lock would go away from the base where it will lock it up. But the more you do not engage with the recommendations of Allah, the more the heart will incline to activating that it will lock. So you see that the spectrum of what a padlock does, it can only move at 180 degrees. So the more you are listening to Allah and his message and you're following it, that lock will be going the other direction. But if you're not filling it with what Allah wants, it will be coming towards where it will what? Self-activate. Allahu Akbar. May Allah not let our hearts self-activate for things that will not benefit us. It also gives us a balance on when not to be miserly and when to be generous. You know, Allah is telling us that وَإِذَا أَنفَقُوا لَمْ يُسْرِفُوا وَلَمْ يَقْتُرُوا وَكَانَ بَيْنَ ذَلِكَ قَوَامًا. That وَإِذَا أَنفَقُوا, the true believer, when that are upright, وَإِذَا أَنفَقُوا, when they spend, لَمْ يُسْرِفُوا, they are not excessive. وَلَمْ يَقْتُرُوا, they are not denying the rights of those that deserve it because they are niggard, they are stingy, they are miserly. وَكَانَ بَيْنَ ذَلِكَ قَوَامًا, it gives you a striking good balance to be in the middle, so you have benefit. And that benefit that you're given in this world will be to your own credit on the day of judgment. These are all different things, yet they've been fused to one, a straight path of moderation. So it is the key to act in accordance with the teachings of Allah and His Prophet, and it is also a way to guide us as human beings. When people do not stand firm on the moderate or on the mandates of Allah, if they tilt one way or the other or another, the society goes bad inevitably. A husband who fails in his obligation to be upright would affect the peace of the inhabitants of the home. A husband who fails to have istiqamah, the wife will not enjoy him, and the children will not enjoy him. And a wife who fails to be upright will suffer the consequences of her stance against the recommendations of Allah. And the children who are not raised with uprightness would foster unrest in society. Government officials who are not managing the affairs of the citizens with uprightness will fail to lead the people aright and in turn create an unjust society. In short, the concept of standing firm is comprehensive. It covers all parts and pillars of the religion. When acted upon correctly, it promotes peace. It promotes peace and civility in society. A companion, Sufyan ibn Abdullah al-Thaqafi, may Allah be pleased with him, asked the Holy Prophet ﷺ, he says, please tell me something so comprehensive about Islam that I need not ask anyone after you. He said, Kul, amantu billah, summa istaqim. Say, I believe in Allah, then stand firm on it. This is the recommendation of the Prophet ﷺ. This was the recommendation of the Prophet to a Sahaba. Then stand firm on it. This was reported by Imam Muslim, may Allah be pleased with him. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said, in the entire Quran, there is no verse more harder or trying than the verse of Quran chapter 11, verse 112 that says, فَاسْتَقِمْ كَمَا أُمِرْتَ وَمَا تَابَ مَعَكَ وَلَا تَطْغَوْا إِنَّهُ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ بَصِيرٌ. For us to understand that Allah does not take this lightly. Even at the point of death, for us to understand istiqamah and the benefit of istiqamah, Allah is telling us in Surah Al-Fussilah, Quran chapter 41, verses 30 to 35. It says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا تَتَنَزَّلُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ أَلَّا تَخَافُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَبْشِرُوا بِالْجَنَّةِ الَّتِي كُنْتُمْ تُوعَدُونَ نحن أولياؤكم في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة ولكم فيها ما تشتهي أنفسكم ولكم فيها ما تدعون نزلا من غفور رحيم ومن أحسن قولا ممن دعا إلى الله وعمل صالحا وقال إنني من المسلمين ولا تستوي الحسنة ولا سيئة ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم وما يلقاها إلا الذين صبروا وما يلقاها إلا ذو حظ عظيم. Allah says, إن الذين قالوا, indeed, those that say, ربنا الله, Allah is our Lord, ثم استقاموا, and they are resolute, they stand firmly, تتنزل عليهم الملائكة, they do not tilt to the left or the right, they follow our tenets the way we've revealed it, and they do it to the best of their ability. تتنزل عليهم الملائكة, when the angels are sent down to come and take their soul. ألا تخافوا, they are told, firstly, don't have any fear. ولا تحزنوا, and have no respite. وأبشروا بالجنة التي كنتم توعدون. We are giving you the glad tidings of a paradise that has been decreed for you. نحن أولياؤكم في الحياة الدنيا. You were our companions in this world because you did things based on the recommendations that we give. وفي الآخرة, and on the day of judgment, you will be our companion too. وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَشْتَهِي أَنفُسُكُمْ. Whatever you desire, we would give to you. وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَدَّعُونَ. And whatever you've prayed for, we will grant you. نُزُلًا مِنْ غَفُورٍ رَحِيمٍ. You are going to descend and ascend to a place of forgiveness and mercy by the mercy of Allah. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ. What is best in the calling to the ways of Allah? وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا, except that someone will do good deeds. وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ, and they would be among those that submit themselves to the will of Allah. Allah says, وَلَا تَسْتَوِي الْحَسَنَةُ وَلَا سَيِّئَةُ. You cannot compare good to evil. ادْفَعْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. You need to struggle to pay back evil with good. فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ. If there's a form of enmity between you and somebody, كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ. Make sure you try as to your utmost best to do good as if you guys are intimate friends. وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا الَّذِينَ صَبَرُوا. No one is able to do this except those that are truly patient with the decrees of Allah. وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا ذُو حَظٍّ عَظِيمٍ. And Allah is the only one that can make things easy. And the last verse I'm gonna go off is Surah Al-Ahqaf, Quran chapter 46, verse 13. Allah says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Allah says, indeed, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا, those that say, رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ, Allah is our Lord, ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا, and they're firm, they're upright in their dealings. فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ, they will have no fear. وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ, and they will have no respite on the day of judgment. May Allah count us among them. I leave it now for questions and answer and contributions from my other scholars, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.